Oh, hey guys! Woo! I just got back from Washington, D.C. on January 21st, 2021 for the new president's inauguration. Woo, is it cold! But the real question is, Donald Trump's still president and can he stay? Well, let me tell you a story. This is Expose. What's up guys, it's your boy Gazda. Welcome to another episode of Expose. These are stories worth sharing. If you're new here, this is episode 2. Expose tackles all manners of human intrigue covering culture, people, politics, and more, always with facts first and available at the bottom in the description twice per month. If that sounds fantastic, check out the whole series above here after finishing this. Quickly subscribe and hit that notification bell to never miss out. And everyone who shares this video with their friends will be visited by a magical broker who will balance your escrow account. Now, let's jump into the precarious situation of Trump and previous political elites who refused to leave office and what became of it and the future with President Trump. America has stood as a beacon of the world early on since its inception in 1776. At the time of its founding, the idea of democracy and a government was still a relatively new idea, and countries throughout the world still had monarchies with significant sway over their people they were charged to govern. Today, the bedrock of America has stood strong with its commitment to a peaceful transfer of power and America's institutions. Our institutions are only as strong as the bulwark of the people charged to defend and uphold them. Now that our 2020 presidential election has more or less been decided, as Joseph Biden has had enough states certifying his victory and President Donald Trump has had his many days in court with everything so far being thrown out, we must ask the question, will Donald Trump leave? And what can the past tell us of those in office refusing to do so? What are the levers to protect against a president becoming a mad king? In this video, we are going to answer those questions by first exploring America's examples of anything close, talking of Trump's norm abiding, and finally, looking into if he continues to resist, followed by my final thoughts. When we, in America, look at leadership and power in politics, we believe we are exceptions to all the rules. Yeah, coups happen in other countries like Sri Lanka and South Africa, but not here. We tell ourselves it can't happen here. And although no president yet has refused to concede and turn over the keys to the executive branch to the next newly minted president, that doesn't mean other lower offices haven't tried to disobey the will of the voters. Barbara McQuade, former U.S. District Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, wrote earlier this year on 3 explicit examples. The first being in 1874 by Governor Edmund J. Davis, the incumbent who lost to Richard Koch. The margin of victory by the Democratic challenger twice that of the Governor Davis in 1873. Governor Davis claimed that the election was tainted with fraud and intimidation. It went as far as to the state Supreme Court, who had all been installed by Governor Davis. They subsequently ruled the election unconstitutional and invalid. The Democrats urged the public to balk this decision and proceeded with Koch's inauguration. On that day, Koch arrived with a squad of sheriffs. Davis locked himself downstairs in the basement with a group of state troopers. He reached out to President Ulysses S. Grant for federal officers to assist him, to which the president refused. And 3 days later, Davis stepped down. Another example shared by McQuade is in Georgia in 1946. The governor-elect of that election cycle died unexpectedly. A standoff of who should assume power occurred between the governor-elect's son, the lieutenant governor-elect, and the outgoing governor. The state assembly voted to appoint the position to the deceased governor-elect's son. The outgoing governor refused, and for a moment in time, both the outgoing governor and the governor-elect's son were both occupying the governor's office, until the governor-elect's son had the locks changed, forcing the outgoing governor to relent. Ultimately, the state Supreme Court declared the position to be charged and executed by the lieutenant governor. Evidently, it appears nepotism did not prevail. Finally, McQuaid shares Franklin D. Roosevelt's refusal to yield the presidency after 2 terms, having ran for a 3rd and even a 4th term. George Washington had set the norm that a president should only serve 2 terms, and until this point, everyone before FDR had exercised this norm. But FDR did not. It wasn't until 1951 that the 22nd Amendment was enacted that barred a president from serving more than 2 terms. It was enacted due to the growing threat of a permanent executive, aka something akin to a king. What threads do all of these share? A thread of refusal to norms and practices. There appears to be a lot of gray area in believing morally people accept norms and practices on good faith. But these real examples of American history show that in order to make a norm something followed, you have to plan for an unscrupulous actor. You have to make it a law, just as the 22nd Amendment did. President Donald Trump has been anything but an average typical president every facet of his tenure. And I could make, as thousands already have, a whole video series exploring his nature. Hell, maybe I will in the future. Make sure to subscribe. However, whether you love him or hate him, we can admit that his persona is very unique to the White House. President Trump has had multiple challenges in court regarding this election, but many of these cases have been thrown out and dismissed. Sam Norman of Fox News reported the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the election observer's challenge. Thomas Barabi, also of Fox News, reported on another Pennsylvania court case being thrown out, trying to dismiss absentee voters because they had missing information. And there have been countless others, not just from conservative sources. It appears now, however, Trump will abide by the norms and leave office as he is considering running again in 2024, according to rumors reported by NPR's Tamara Keith. Additionally, according to The Guardian's reporting during a press briefing, the president was asked if he will leave. Here is that video in full.
Just to be clear, if the Electoral College votes for Joe Biden, will you concede?
Well, if they do, they made a mistake, because this election was a fraud. Just so you understand, this election was a fraud. I mean, they have Biden beating Obama on Obama's vote in areas that mattered in terms of the election, in swing states. And yet he's losing to Obama all over the place. But he's beating Obama in swing states, which are the states that mattered for purposes of the election. So, no, I can't say that at all. I think it's a possibility. They're trying to, look, between you people, don't talk to me that way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way. All right, I'm going to go with another question. Go ahead.
So if the Electoral College does elect President-elect Joe Biden, are you not going to leave this building?
Just so you, certainly I will. Certainly I will. And you know that.
Expose will always put the facts first, whether they suit the narrative or not, so that you are fully informed. And I have to be that information warden to let everyone know that President Donald J. Trump's insistent hypothesis that this election was full of fraud and illegal voting to this day has not been proven with any evidence and is opinion-based, anecdotal, and false based on all evidence available. Former cybersecurity and infrastructure security industry director Christopher Krebs stated, ICYMI, in case you missed it, on allegations that election systems were manipulated. 59 election security experts all agree. In every case of which we are aware, these claims either have been unsubstantiated or are technically incoherent. #Protect2020. Former Director Krebs' job was to ensure that this election was as secure as possible. Just as a final thought. What if at the midnight hour or within the next month and a half, President Donald Trump pulls an about-face and reneges on his promise to leave office if the electors choose President-elect Joseph Biden on December 14th? May be a question you are asking. Well, According to the US Constitution's 20th Amendment, Section 1, it states the following: "The terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January. Of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of the successors shall then begin." So, in the event that the electors do choose President-elect Joseph Biden on the 14th of December, which by all accounts looks to be extremely likely, whether he likes it or not, he being Donald Trump, he won't have any power at noon on January 20th. This is one example where there is no gray. It is cut and dry. His power evaporates. He could theoretically order anything, any form of protection to him that day, but after noon, he loses all power. And personally, I don't see Trump as the type to lock himself in the basement. A basement? That is a shithole, when he has literal palaces to return to.
Bye-bye.
In conclusion today, we explored how important norms are to be codified in law, and a review of how our institutions are only as strong as we believe and accept them to be. We provided 3 examples in American history that highlighted how they can be eroded by people. We then looked at Trump's options and what could happen if he tried to go the route of the 3 examples. Remember, if you want to make your voice heard, whether you're conservative or liberal, you need to speak up. You need to be involved, and you can't expect your elected officials will have your best interest if you're not showing them. You will vote them out if they don't listen to you and aren't getting involved. Stay informed and stay involved. Oops. It looks like I'm fading back to my future timeline. It appears I have stayed much too long. Remember to subscribe and share this video with all your friends and continue the conversation with my past self down below. That's it for this video, guys. See ya! Yeah, no, don't worry, I'll do it later. What the hell? Who turned on all my lights and camera?